friend Koger, and welcome to Every Day is Wisdom, where every day we co-create with the universe an amazing life in the areas of health, finances, and relationships. Tonight, I have the sheer joy to have on the show a woman who I am so in awe of her life story. She's a visionary speaker, a creative catalyst, and a rebel humanitarian. She's the author of Conversations with the Universe and Your Journey to Enlightenment. She's the co-founder of 1111 Magazine and 1111 Talk Show. And last but certainly not least, she's, to me, a shining example of someone who lives a life of freedom and courage. Welcome, Simran Singh.
Oh, thank you, Bren. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your audience.
So happy to have you here. I'd like to get started with your life story. It's so fascinating to me, and I remember hearing it years ago, particularly since you started out following what society would consider not just a typical path, but an exceptional one. You were a straight-A student, and you followed a typical career path and life path that was expected of you, but found yourself realizing you were going through the motions, which led to a chaotic event and then a synchronistic event. Can you share about that event that led you to discovering 1111?
Oh, sure. I'll be happy to share all that. And I think before starting into my own story, I want to get across that I think our stories each have their own details, but ultimately we all go through the same thing. We all want love. We all don't want to feel any pain. We all have beliefs and things that we've lived through that we are trying to understand and make meaning of, and there's a magic in our lives that exists that oftentimes we are not conscious of for a very, very long time, and being unconscious of that magic and going by our own will and pushing and trying and struggling leads us down a path to where we bump up against in ourselves in the pebbles, rocks, and boulders that we create. And so that's exactly what I did, because I came from a culture where I was growing up in the United States, but I came from an Indian culture, and I was trying to conform to both, and slowly and steady just keep giving away myself and letting go of any semblance of who I was. I just kept people pleasing and saying, okay, this is what they want me to do to get love, so this is what I'll do. And that led me to a place of really not knowing who I am, truly getting to a moment in my life where everything started to crumble and disappear. Nothing was working. And my nothing was working to the outside world looked like success. It looked like a life that was put together and everything was working. But we all know that place where everything looks pretty good, but it doesn't feel so good. You just know something's not right. You just know something's missing in the relationships. You just know that there's pain existing where pain should not exist, where there's behaviors coming at you that are not loving. They're just not considered loving behaviors. And I found myself basically broken down. And in that moment, I asked for a sign. And I wanted to understand why my life looked the way it was, because I was really a good person. In my eyes, I did everything that a good person did. And it didn't make sense to me that life looked the way it looked. What I didn't realize at the time was that life was just showing me what was inside of me, the belief systems that I had buried and covered up. But more so, what I realized with the writing of my second book and the embarkment on what was called the Rebel Road Tour was I didn't trust life. I didn't trust the universe. I didn't trust myself, most importantly. And I didn't trust that presence that was out there. And so the signs and symbols started showing up, and they started as 11s and 111s and 1111s.
Yeah, I love that. The whole, getting symbols, and you say that it can be anything. It can be numbers, it can be a billboard, it can be a license plate, it can be just about anything. And I actually had the same kind of experience with the name Christy when I was going through a transition in my life with my relationship and my job, and I saw Christy for several times for one day, and like you, I finally realized that it wasn't just a random event, and I asked, what is this about? And I had 3 more times that I heard and saw the word Christy. And maybe you could share when you do have those symbols and those things that are coming to you. You talk about going into your heart space and really being aware of the moment, what you're thinking in that moment, and the power in that.
Well, first of all, for people that are saying I don't get a sign, there are a couple of things I want to really get across. Number one, we are all getting signs and symbols all of the time, mm-hmm. and they are happening all of the time, every single day. So you're actually being spoken volumes, paragraphs every single day. Because we're not aware of it, what tends to happen is the universe gives us repetition. And so like you were seeing Christy, or I was seeing 1111, that was because we were in a place where we weren't quite being aware of what was really happening in our lives, that the universe had to keep knocking on the door. And that was their way of knocking on the door. What I'd like for you each to understand is the extraordinary actually lies within the ordinary. It lies in our homes, in our cars, in our pets, in our children. In fact, it lies in the phone call that just came while we were on the air. But we want to make those things random things or mistakes or just something that happens. And what I would urge you to do when you go back and re-listen to this interview again and again and again, because it's filled with so much greatness, is listen to where that ring comes in, because that's a call. It's a call coming forward from the universe saying, are you listening to this right now? What this particular thing means to you right now? What if there is nothing random? What if everything has its perfect place and everything is synchronicity and everything is a miracle? If you looked at life in that way, you would start to realize that life can only conspire for your good, and that everything in life can only be good, especially the things that we want to judge as bad or negative. And what I found as I went through my own experiences, the repetitions would show up in a moment where I was thinking about something I really wanted to do, but my mind was telling me, you can't do that. You can't do that because you're not smart enough, or you've not been trained, or you don't have the money, or people won't support you, or whatever these many thoughts are that go inside of our head. And so what we tend to do is listen to the thoughts, and what the sign or the symbol is trying to say is get out of your brain, disconnect from there, go into your heart, and know that that's possible, that the universe has your back. The underlying message of every single sign and symbol that shows up in the world, regardless of what it is the universe has got your back. And if you will walk through this door in belief and just go for it, the universe will send you another sign or symbol or open doorway to let you know you're headed in the right direction. That is the conversation, because a conversation takes two. So the symbols show up as part of the conversation, and your action step is your part of the conversation. And when you take that action step, the universe will speak to you again. And that's how you begin this amazing walk where the world is constantly speaking to you, and you truly start becoming a conscious co-creator in your life.
And the more that you do it, and the more that you take the action step, you're saying that it's kind of a reciprocal thing. You'll get more and more of it coming to you.
You'll get more and more of it coming to you, and you'll get to a place where you realize you're not on a journey. The mistake that we've made in the world, because we've just followed what everyone's doing, we followed what society has taught us, what our parents have taught us, what life has shown us, is that we're supposed to have this end destination. We're supposed to get a degree, or we're supposed to get a certain house, or a certain lifestyle, or a certain bank account. So we're always living in the future for this end thing. And what I'm here to tell you is you're not on a journey, because a journey is the end destination. You are the journey. You are every moment of that journey. Can you stay in the experience, in the moment, right now, knowing that this is everything, that you are here as experience, experiencing itself. And the moment you can really connect to that one thought, that I am experiencing itself, then all of a sudden everything changes. Because if this moment calls for your tears and your sadness or your anger and you just really feeling, then you're going to understand that as experience, as the divine, as the universe moving through you, its desire is just to experience the emotion of sadness, anger, fear, whatever it is. Just experience it. Not attach it to a story, not make something bigger out of it, not related to the past, but just to experience it. See, the universe is talking right now. It's saying, and that's the beauty of it, because what just happened is a dog barked. What does a dog represent? A dog represents unconditional love. And what does the bark represent? It represents the voice, and it's a bark. It's a bark because so many of us are holding in here the tension, the anger, the sadness, the angst in our bodies that we've not let express. And what my work has evolved into is really helping people understand that there's a very sacred marriage that has to take place. And all of these signs and symbols and synchronicities and all of the shedding that has to take place to move into courage instead of conformity is so that you marry the shadow self, so that the light and the shadow come together. And you realize that your power is in your pain, that your power rests in those very emotions that are trapped in each and every one of the cells. And when you allow that emotion to burst through in the most creative of ways, the co-creative of ways, and allow it to become inspiration, all of a sudden, you've now gotten the fuel to step into the full light of who you are. Because the light's always there, but it can only be seen if there is dark. And so that ember that is sitting in the dark is waiting to shine, but only when you are ready to give value to the very dark that it sits in.
Yeah. And I've heard you using an analogy of the birthing process that's necessary to go through that kind of, squeezing chaotic event, or a butterfly coming out of a cocoon, and how that's necessary to have those kind of things to go through to the next step. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? I guess it's just what you're exactly saying.
It is, because birthing is not a pretty process, and it's often with pain. Women really know this. We're in a place right now in the world where there's just such an extreme weight of the masculine energy. And I'm talking about the masculine energy that rests both in men and women. Masculine energy looks like pushing and toiling and working and doing everything where we've got to exert energy. It is the hunting gathering, and that's what men have always been. It is what women have become because they've thought they've had to, because they've given up their power. And what we're here to do is balance it out with the divine feminine. So what is the divine feminine? It is that receiving place. It is the place of rest. It is the place of birth. So if you look at the very ancient feminine, if you look at Mother Earth, for example, in the womb space that we sit in, the womb space is a very dark place. There's no light in the womb space, but all of a sudden there is a burst of light that is life. Now, did we do that? No, we didn't. We didn't have any part of it. It's a burst of light that takes place because there's the ember of possibility there. And then this baby gestates and marinates and it grows. Do we do anything with that? No, we don't have any part of that as women. That just takes place. And then this birth happens. Well, that's the very same thing that needs to happen in our lives. But what we're used to is doing that pushing, struggling, toiling thing, never taking the rest because we don't think rest is valuable, and then we don't understand why life doesn't look the way it's supposed to look, or why we're not receiving our worth back for all the stuff that we've put out there. But if we would take the time to stop, to rest, to find our own rhythm, to literally say, okay, universe, I'm going to trust your flow instead of thinking I'm here all by myself and I have to do it. Then all of a sudden, things start happening. Birthing starts taking place. From nothing becomes something. From the void emerges light. And so that's what I am here to do on the planet, is to be that example of someone that says, can we shed every single identity that we've ever had? And in each shedding, can we just step back instead of feeling the panic of, I've got to go do something, step back and say, what if I just stopped? What if I literally just stopped? And what's going to happen is there are going to be the thoughts of, oh my gosh, I've got bills to pay, or I've got to do this, or how am I going to take care of my day, or I can't stop working. And that's where the mind goes. That's the conditioning. That is the human conditioning that we've had. But what I've seen in my life is when I've taken the time to stop, especially in those moments where maybe the money was not there and it made no sense, something showed up and brought me everything that I've needed. And so I've chosen to live more in the energy of the feminine than the energy of the masculine, which I lived in for so very long. And my urge for you is to try to do the same. And the way you do that is following the signs, symbols, and synchronicities, your conversations with the universe, developing that trust. And then, like in my second book, Your Journey to Enlightenment, really stepping out of conformity, finding the creative rebel inside that knows there's something in your gut that's wanting to birth, and letting yourself follow that heart call, and stepping out of being that Stepford human that's just a copycat of everybody else, following the same way everyone else did it, and finding what that child inside wants to play with. And you might be amazed at the magic that unfolds.
Yes. We talked a little bit before the broadcast about planning, and I'm curious about how much you plan your day or your week, or do you pretty much, when you get the signs and symbols of what to do next, do you just kind of follow it intuitively?
I wake up to a brand new day every single day. I wake up to a brand new dream every single day, minute, hour. I'm not here to plan anything. I've realized that the best plans can't even compare to what the unknown knows and has planned for us. And so when I wake up in the morning, I really follow what my heart wants to do. I really follow what's coming to mind in that second. And what I find is I get a lot more done. I actually achieve more in a day when I allow it to flow in that manner than if I had a list to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I was one of those list makers for a very, very long time. I would try to cram stuff in. I would be up till 3 o'clock in the morning trying to finish things, then back up at 5 o'clock in the morning for many years of my life. And what I ended up was tired, depleted, and exhausted, completely broken by the end of it, a workaholic and numb. And I accomplish more now with a lot more rest and playtime than I ever did with all of those hours. So there's something that has to be said for letting life take over rather than thinking that we have to control it. And it's hard to release the control if you're used to living that way. But if you're willing to see if it works, you're going to find out that you're a lot more supported than you actually realize.
Yeah. I love it. I heard you say, you were honest enough to say that there were periods of time where you had a little fear or a doubt that would come in, and I think you said you went by a mirror at some point and said, what the heck am I? But I loved what you said about the second glance. That you.
Yes, especially on the Rebel Road, because I embarked on this tour with no plan. Doing things I'd never done before. I'd never sang, I'd never done comedy, I'd actually never spoken before on stage. And I decided to do this 66-city tour of getting up on stage and allowing myself to just spontaneously say or do whatever came to mind. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing because it was an incredible way to, number one, stretch myself completely, to truly let myself leap and fall into the arms of creation and see what would come through me. And also move through a lot of the doubts and the belief systems that I had. Because, in fact, every single day, there was a day that I went by a mirror. And I would go, oh, my God, Cindy, you are so insane. What are you doing here? You don't know how to do any of these things. And I would walk past, but something did always stop me and pull me back. And when I looked back in the mirror, I looked into my own eyes, and I would always hear internally, you know exactly what you're doing. And there is a part of you that really does know exactly what you're doing. What I can tell you is there's no wrong turns. There's absolutely no mistakes that you can make. You cannot take a wrong path because every step in your life will lead you exactly to where you need to go. Every step is going to take you to somewhere that's going to teach you something, have you grow, or bring you an opportunity. And it will always lead you to your ultimate destiny. So there's no need to rush the end point because it's always making its way to you. You just need to stand still and do what comes to your heart and mind in the moment.
Now, do you feel like I know that you've spent some time in the industry and quite a bit of time on a different career path. Do you feel that everything that you've experienced in your life, you see where it has unfolded into where you are now, and every part of it has been necessary to where you are now?
I do believe that life trains us along the way. I believe that it gives us all the experiences that we need so that we can take our next best steps. There are things that I did this year and since beginning my work with 1111 magazine and radio in 2008 that all stemmed from my careers in fashion. I spent 30 years in the fashion industry, and what the fashion industry taught me was about patterns, pardon the pun, but looking at clothing and looking at how patterns came together started me writing a blog about fashion, and then that turned into a blog that was spiritual, and I correlated the patterns in clothing to the patterns of our lives, and it just evolved. But it was me taking the time to realize, can I let myself be the experience rather than it being about the agenda, or it being about helping people, or it being about something outside, because there's no one in the room but you. And so if you can go through life understanding that you are here completely to evolve and involve the experience of you so that experience can experience itself, and that you are serving you, and you are inspiring you, and you are enlivening you, then that can't help but inspire, enliven, and awaken other people. Because you're touching your own heart. And when we touch our own heart, we're going to touch others, because that's where the oneness is. But if you're sitting here thinking, I need to help people, I need to save people, I need to fix people, there is nothing to save, fix, or heal out there, because there's nothing out there. It looks real, it feels real, but there's only you in the room. And this entire world, this entire experience was so that you would discover this inner universe and all that it holds, which is far greater, far wealthier, and far more beautiful than anything you can find out there.
You say that everything is in you and related to other people. So relationships, have you found that, people that maybe weren't understanding your journey, was it a process of, that's part of it too, that's part of the whole experience, is the relationships, maybe loved ones or people that didn't understand your journey? Did you have to let some people go through that process?
We pick the people in our lives, or the personalities that are us showing up as other people, so that we can understand that they're only mirroring back to us in words and behaviors the very things that we're thinking or feeling inside about ourselves. And so if we can really just look at every other person and every other thing as another aspect of ourselves, then all of a sudden we can take it personally and not so personally, because we realize that that's a gift in front of us to show us another place that we can go deeper. And also whether or not we're going to believe those things. When we have people that want to criticize or don't understand or want to be negative about something that we do, if it triggers us, then it's triggering us, number one, because we believe it and we're wanting to own it. So can you get to the place where you understand that what they're saying about you might have nothing to do with you? And if you believe it, then it's yours, and if you don't, then it's theirs, and all of a sudden it disappears from your life. There are going to be people that may disappear or will end up shifting, because that's part of the process. It's actually a gauge. The world speaks to us because the world is us. Every piece and part of the world is you. And as things shift and evolve and change in your world, it is a measurement of how you are shifting, evolving, and changing in your inner world. So it's a beautiful gauge, because you're going to find that there are people that you might term as negative or critical or harsh with you, and then all of a sudden those people have stepped out of your life. Well, that's because you've been finally able to release that within yourself, or honor yourself enough to no longer allow that in your life. And so it's a beautiful way to see the mirrors in front of you, because the hardest thing to do is see ourselves, and that's why the world is created around us, so that we can see ourselves.
I love that. That's I saw that on Facebook today, and I actually had to share that because it just really means a lot to me. I'm curious about when you said that when you got the information for 1111 magazine, you described it as a download. And for those of us who are interested in co-creating with the universe, information like, say, a book or a painting, and maybe to just give some advice on how to facilitate that process of, and does it have to involve a chaotic event necessarily?
No, I think that we've been in a time throughout history where we've had to use pain, conflict, and struggle to create our awakenings. We are definitely moving more towards a fifth dimensional sphere, and so we don't have to do it that way, and it is a choice. So if there is a lot of pain and struggle in your life, you're choosing to create your awakening that way. You can choose for it to be more peaceful. I also want you to understand that I'm a really ordinary girl. I was never one of those that heard things, saw things, did things, had visions, and all of that kind of stuff. 1111 magazine was the one moment that it happened where I saw pictures of what this magazine was supposed to look like, and I heard a voice, and that voice was my own. Now, that occurred, I think, because I reached such a point of surrender in that moment, because I was so broken and completely had let go of all the identities I had, because everything in my life had kind of disappeared, that I was in such an open space that I was able to tap into something. So it's not as if if people are downloading something into them and they're all this special person and they have these special gifts, because we all have it. What happens is you let go of your identity enough, you've gotten out of your head enough to be an open space, that you tap into this infinite field that is all around you all of the time, and you're tapping into wisdom and knowledge that is available to you. So we can all do it. It is based on the degree of control we have in our own lives and how much we stay in our heads or locked into the identities that we have. And we all have the identities. I was the daughter, I was the sister, I was the mother, I was the wife, I'm the ex-wife, I'm the publisher, I'm the radio host. That's a lot of different garments. I was in the fashion industry. I've got a lot of clothing. So I can take all of that clothing off, and then all of a sudden what's left? If I took off every single identity garment that I wore, what would be left here? Nothing and everything. It would be energy and space. And that's what we are. We are the void. We are the creations in the void. And then we go back to the nothing again, because we're not meant to be here to create something and then all of a sudden be that. That's just another identity to get locked into. Can you be in a space that you're just creating something for the sheer passion and heart and exhilaration of it? And then when you no longer have the passion and heart and exhilaration for it, let it go and move on to the next thing. That is how you stay in the flow. But society says, no, you got to stick to it because you worked on it for so long, or you have to stick to it because now it's making money, or you have to stick to it because you spent too much money on it and it's not making money. If you can get out of those paradigms, you're going to start to see that you've created your own freedom in your life. Because freedom is not something that's going to be outside. Freedom is something you're going to give to yourself, because you've moved beyond all the limitations and constructs that society, family, generations, and culture has placed upon you.
Yeah. I like what you say about it. It's supposed to be a joyous experience. That's what life is about.
Yes. Yes. We are here to be children, divine children of the planet. We are here to live as children. And I go very in-depth on that in my book, Your Journey to Enlightenment, because a lot of people have forgotten how to be the child. I know that I never knew how to be a child because I was working since I was 4. But a lot of people either have never been the child or have forgotten to. And the one thing that I have seen about children is they manifest. They manifest very easily and very quickly. They're not running around making vision boards. They're not running around stating affirmations either. They are so deeply immersed in their passion and their play that they become that, and it shows up. That is the place that we're supposed to be as divine children on the planet. And if we can immerse ourselves in the excitement of what it is we want to do that completely fills us up, that lights us on fire, that is something that just is bursting through us, everything we need is going to come to us. Life is going to conspire to bring us the people, the opportunities, the doorways, and the magic necessary to make those dreams reality. Because just the sheer space of holding the thought of it is putting it into the energetic ethers. It is then the belief and the knowing that it's possible that a child has that makes it real. We just have to get into the knowing that as divine children on the planet, we deserve exactly everything that we wish for.
So just play, have fun.
It's that simple. It's that simple. And you know, the thing is, people, when you listen to this video, you're going to be like, it can't be that simple. That can't be that simple. I have to make it hard. I have to do these things to get that place. I can't just play. That's where our mind goes. But what if it really is that simple? Do you really think all of this was created just so you could struggle? I don't think so. I really don't think so.
And like you said, that's when things come to you, when you're in that flow of play and joy. More of the things that, if you're wanting things to come into your life, that's when it comes in.
Yes. And when you get into those places that bring up emotion, because we're going to have those, that's part of the play. I mean, if you just look at us as children and what we've created in this world anyway, I mean, each one of us have our drama stories. Each one of us are drama queens and drama kings. Just look at our lives, right? Look at what you choose to go see as children, as teenagers, as young adults. They go to see horror films. They go to see dramas, mysteries. What are you watching on TV? What are the songs you're listening to? They all have these ups and downs of emotion. We love that stuff because it makes us feel and go up and down. And so we're going to create that stuff in our life. So when it happens, if you do choose to still create it, all it's asking of you is just to feel the emotion and move through it, and then it'll wash right through and the next opportunity and experience will come. You don't have to get bogged down in it. It's just another piece of equipment on the playground of life. It's like going down the slide. When you're in that place of real sadness and tears, you just went down the slide. You can go right back up and be high, and then you can choose to go down the slide again. And if we look at life in that way, all of a sudden we realize we don't have to carry things with us. We just have to run around the playground and choose what it is we want to play with.
Yes. So it reminds me of, when you are on that roller coaster and you're in the dip and you're going back up, you talk about in your book the 5 questions. I thought that was really powerful about when you are in maybe a little chaotic event. There's 5 questions like, where is this in me? I thought was really powerful, and what is it here to teach me? So maybe you could talk a little bit more about those 5 questions and the importance of that.
Yes, there are several questions throughout the book, and I do think that the most important one is, where is that in me? Because what's showing up in front of you is very clearly trying to have a conversation with you. It's trying to say, Simi, Bren, this is something that's inside of you right now. This is a thought system, a belief system. This is something embedded in your cells, and it's just shown up in the most beautiful, creative way. It's been painted on your canvas in this way just for you to really get down and deep into it. Will you look at what this means for you? But then also look at the entire situation that's going on, because just as much as the deep darkness is showing up in that image, if you look at everything else in the scenario, like where it's taking place or what's involved, is it a car or a house or a pet, or what colors are going on, and all of that kind of things, you're going to see a beautiful picture, a puzzle, a collage that is formed, and the answers of how to get out of that situation are there as well. That's the surprise of the Cracker Jack box, is that the answers actually sit in that very same situation as well. So then if you go through the other questions, where is that in me? What is this here to show me about me? What is the gift that is trying to birth from within me? What are the steps that I have to take to discover that new part of me? All of these questions that you go into, they just take you to bigger expanses of yourself. Because the fact is, you can't keep spirit in a bottle. But what we're trying to do is keep ourselves confined to this mind and this body and this heart, when we don't realize that we are actually everything outside of our body instead of just this body. And so when you allow the world to be a part of that, the oneness of that is what's going to lead you down your path.
Yeah, and I'm curious too about the physical component because you said something about that 95% of our brain is not being used, and there's a part of our brain called the true brain. I'm really curious about that and how that's a connection to our conversations with the universe, because I've heard that so many times in my life that a high percentage of our brain is actually not being used. So how that correlates to having a communication with the universe, because I feel like that is just going to be increasing in the future for people.
Well, what we have come to believe is that our brain is just in our head. And so we believe our life and every step that we have to take in our life from 100% of that, when actually the brain is just our computer processor. That's all it is. It takes in information, it spits out information. And oftentimes our best thinking got us where we are. So if we stay in our heads, we're going to keep creating the same things we've always created, and that's going to be painful. Your true brain actually exists 13 inches down between your heart and your gut. And so when you can stay in your heart and really start to trust and listen to that gut, you're tapping into what quantum physicists are finding now, finding proof of, is that where you're really creating from is from the heart and gut reaction. The thoughts are being stimulated and they're allowing you to fuel what you're going to create. But if you can drop out of your mind and drop into your heart and really get into the feeling, and then drop into the gut as to what it's asking you to do, you're going to create something entirely different. Now, there's a misconception because people say, I don't want to think negative thoughts, or I don't want to feel negative feelings because that's wrong. I can only say positive affirmations. That's not entirely true, because if you're suppressing the negative, or you're suppressing feelings that are quote unquote bad, or you're only saying the positive affirmations, then what you're going to create is actually everything that you're hiding inside of yourself. The subconscious is going to show itself outside of you. The practice that I use is if I'm actually feeling an emotion, I feel the emotion. I detach from the story. That's the key place, because when we attach it to the story, then comes judgment, then comes blame, then comes a fuel that is actually more based on fear than love. But when you say, I'm going to detach from the story and I'm just willing to feel the feelings because I am experiencing itself, that is actually a loving action. You're telling your body, your spirit, that it has permission to fully have this experience, to feel. You're loving yourself enough to feel it and let it wash through. When you feel it and let it wash through in that way, you cannot create out of a negative space. It will not. It will actually move everything negative out of the space. So what you truly want from your gut and your heart actually manifests instead. And so that's the key difference. It's a piece that I think is hidden in a lot of places. They don't talk about how important the shadow is, how important those emotions that we want to call bad and negative really, really are, because they're necessary. Everything is light. There is nothing that is not good. It is our judgment of what it is that causes the shift as to whether it outpictures in a positive way or a negative way.
I love that. Yeah. So when you're having an experience like that, instead of thinking I'm going to do affirmations or go to a positive, stay with it and let it go through you and
Yes.
consider it part of the process.
Yes, and you know when it's left your body, because if you're willing to stay with it, you're going to feel it. If you can breathe through it and you can find where it is in your body, and if you can talk to that piece of your body, it's going to answer you, and you will feel it literally move out. And once it moves out, then's the moment to start stating your affirmations. Then's the moment to bring in your prayers, to call in the company of heaven or your angels or your guides, and then say, I now state, I now command, I now decree a new experience and what that experience is. And you will not only create it more powerfully, you will create it in a faster way. Otherwise, you're just going to hide something for a little while and then bring it back later. That's oftentimes what you hear about relationships. When we get out of a relationship and then we get into another one and we recreate the same thing, it's because we've never fully felt the emotions that we had from the first one. We've never allowed them to neutralize. We've never allowed them to be absorbed into the light. And when we allow the darkness to absorb, then all of a sudden it's that void again where light can burst through anew. And that is the birthing process that we were talking about, that is the divine feminine.
It's great information. I know you've said that you don't want to be seen as a guru, but to encourage people to look within themselves for answers. And you describe it as being a master. Can you explain to people what you mean by that, to not look outside yourself but go within, and what a master means?
I think that we're all masters walking. And my definition of a master is a bit different than a lot of people's, because I believe that we're each masters. We each walk through every single day a lot of stuff. And when we can get out of bed after having gone through something, that's what a master does. A master is not someone that has miracles all around them or in an instant can affirm something and it manifest. A master is someone that knows how to walk through the muck and the mire and get through it. And so if you're moving through your life and stuff is showing up and you're still standing and you're still walking and you can still find the light at the end of the tunnel, that is mastery. What you are here to be and what you are doing in those steps is what I would like to be seen as, and that is the example. That is the best way to truly change this world, is for each one of us to be a walking, living example of the depths and heights of our consciousness, to be authentic, to speak our truth, to be willing to say in a very intimate and vulnerable, open way that of exactly what we're doing and what we're feeling and how we're moving through it. Because then we give people the permission to do the same. We give people the opportunity to be real as well. And that's the place that we have to go. Right now we live in an inhumane world, and the place that we have to go is humanity. And so many people think we're here to save humanity. We're here to help and serve humanity. What I'd like to offer is that humanity is not out there. Humanity is right here. Can you find and serve humanity in here by being open and honest and authentic and vulnerable and transparent? Because when you can do that and be humane to yourself, then what you will become is a love catalyst in the outer world. And that's where the world will change. We don't need to save humanity. We need to save this humanity.
So such great information. And I know that you have a new book coming out, To Love. Do you want to say anything about your new book coming out?
You know, my books have come out in an interesting order. Conversations with the Universe was first, which I do think is a good first book for people to read, because you'll see the world in a completely different way. You'll learn how to trust the planet. You'll learn how to trust things that are going on around you. And you'll start to have this communion with the world in a way that you haven't before. You'll see it with new eyes. My second book, Your Journey to Enlightenment, was really here to show people that enlightenment is something you give yourself, and that there's a shedding process that we have to do to find that creative rebel inside and become the divine child again from that place of innocence. My third book in this trilogy or trinity is, to me, a very important final piece, and that is really about the sacred marriage. It is really about being willing to understand and love and discover who the true soulmate was and has always been. And the true soulmate has always been that one that's been in the shadows. The shadow always has our back. If you notice, it's behind us. It's also always leading the way because it shows up in front of us. And so that shadow is the one that we have to find and discover as our soulmate, fall in love with in a true way. And when we can have that sacred marriage, then all of a sudden you'll have everything. You'll have freedom, you'll have love, you'll have abundance, you'll have prosperity, you'll have everything that you ever wished for, because you're in such a place of union and communion that you have discovered the true meaning of the Trinity. And so Your Journey to Love actually comes out February of 2015, and I'm really excited because it's a very vulnerable, authentic, real, heartfelt book that is here to open hearts and really help you see how to have that sacred marriage in your own self.
I can't wait to read that. And for people that are wanting more information, I'm just going to mention your website is www.iamsimran.com. That's IAMSIMRAN.com, just for people if they want more information about your books.
Thank you. And I do have, for individuals, if you're having trouble deciphering things that are going on in your world, I do seeing sign sessions so that you can start to see how they're showing up in your world and how the world speaks to you, so that you learn how to decipher your own. We each have our own dialect, and once you have an understanding of how to connect to your conversations, you are off and running in a beautiful playground of life where you get to play with the magic.
Thank you so much, Simran, for all that you do and being such an inspiration, such a shining example, and you are a divine aha moment. And thank you so much for spending the time and sharing your message with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bren, for having me on, and I bless and honor you for the creative work that you're doing and the inspiration that you're being to so many women, and the light, the torch of light that you're carrying in the world. So continue on and blaze that trail.
Thank you. Take care.